unburdened by what has been. That is what Jalen Hurts did in this past Super Bowl 59 performance that was so masterful. It made everybody on every social media platform practically just go straight up bananas. I was going to go more explicit reasoning for that. But welcome to the show. This is the Shadow of the Script podcast. I'm your host, Jared May. We're going to be talking basically all things Super Bowl 59. I mean, from top to bottom. Mahomes versus Brady debate, that's been talked about pretty extensively since the game ended in the fashion that it did. Jalen Hurts' legacy, the good, the bad, the ugly between that. Kendrick Lamar's halftime show and all of the crazies that have orchestrated some type of manufactured conspiracy theory behind the puzzling performance of which he performed. The commercials, the whole thing. And we'll kind of lead that into a kind of a shadow of the script argument of the truth behind the lies, as this is the last episode of season 2 of the Shadow of the Script podcast. So before we get started, I wanted to tell everybody thank you for being along for the ride for season 2. Hopefully it was organized. It was fun. We did some fan and audience engagement with the Challenge the Script with College Football 25, which I thought was a blast, and I would definitely be willing to bring that back next year with some more challenges and incentives. We got a lot of fun information through the stats and scars lens with the analyst and the medical guy. I've given them a break. I've been slaving them away for months, and they have newborn babies and whatnot. They're family men. They're dads now. I thought I'd give them, the playoffs, the latter end of the playoffs, just kind of time to breathe. But they will be back. Stats and scars is an essential piece of the puzzle. I love working with those guys. Obviously, they're family. So we're going to continue with that as we get closer to the draft. You'll probably see more stats and stars coming out, really providing the insights on, we'll probably do mostly, a Dallas Cowboys centralized, focus on what they're going to do in the draft, what we should do in free agency, evaluate the injuries and the stats and the analytics behind that sort of thing. But yes, they will be back. But we had a fun season 2, and I appreciate you guys joining. And we're looking forward to season 3 with more and more fun stuff, and hopefully we'll gain, more popularity is the easiest way to say it, and some more viewership and engagement. Well, the glasses can come off. Yeah, I was just kind of joking around. But look, Super Bowl 59, we were not excited for it. Like we talked about in the last episode. We just weren't very excited for this matchup again. Obviously, the Chiefs, no one's really a fan. I'm actually going to jot down a note so I don't forget it later. Nobody's really a fan of the Chiefs as of late. A lot of things factor into that. But with the Eagles and stuff, really the only people that like the Eagles are from Philadelphia. And you're in the city of brotherly love, or butt brother love, I guess you can call it. And so it's just not a very big fan favorite Super Bowl. A lot like when the Patriots and the Eagles were in it years ago. But I just wanted to talk about, there's a lot of discussion between Mahomes and Brady and who's the GOAT, and we knew this was coming, win or lose. Win, it was absolutely he's the GOAT. Lose, it's 80% is saying he's not the GOAT, no way he can catch Brady, and the other 20% says he's not even 30 years old yet. So there's going to be arguments left and right. You won't know where to turn your head. And I think the point of the argument, where we'll start off basically, is that there's a whole lot more football and career for Patrick Mahomes for us to watch. We essentially just watched the era of him, Travis Kelce, paired together on the same team. I think there's a lot more coming for this offense. I think they had to fill in the gaps from injured pieces. But when you look at them in terms of roster, they had to pick up Kareem Hunt out of free agency. Yes, the wife beater out of free agency, to replace Isaiah Pacheco, who was hurt during the season. They didn't have a backup contingency plan at running back. They had to cut Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the former LSU champion. So they had some problems in the running back room. Patrick Mahomes really hadn't been playing up to par due to injuries to the wide receiver sets. Travis Kelce is getting old. You had Rashee Rice, I believe, tear his ACL. Hollywood Brown dealing with an AC joint shoulder type injury for most of the year. You had to trade for DeAndre Hopkins for less draft capital than Jonathan Mingo. Thought I wouldn't dig at the Cowboys, but I just did. And so just Juju Smith-Schuster, obviously, it's just kind of a has-been. He's on the roster. But so there was a lot of moving parts within this offense that played a factor into maybe why they were having as many close games as they did. It doesn't explain the fact that those games were outcomed the way that they were. And so my biggest takeaway with the game itself, because like if you watched it and you are a highly knowledgeable NFL fan, you kind of look for the smaller things that a lot of, I guess, Joe Schmoes don't really notice. You notice that there was some missed calls on the Chiefs side that should have been called. And yes, that's correct. There were missed calls. A lot of hands to the face. They started off, the refs were actually off to a pretty bad start in this Super Bowl. They had that awful offensive pass interference call on A.J. Brown. So, but they kind of picked it back up and kind of just leaving everything alone. But if you notice that the Chiefs were not getting a lot of calls in this Super Bowl, and you had fans from each side of the dotted line basically saying, well, you wanted to see what would happen if the Chiefs didn't get any calls. Now they're not getting any, and everyone else is getting calls, and you're not going to say a damn thing about the Eagles getting all the calls. Then the other side was that look what happens when you don't get the calls that everyone else doesn't get. Both those are true. I mean, flat out, both those are true. You can take whatever position you want. If I took one side or the other, I'd probably be just looked at as a hater or a supporter of one side or the other. I think giving the realistic point of view is the best viable option here, because I have tried my hardest not to hate either of these teams. And people that know me closest know that. They understand that. They've heard me say the phrase, the media wants you to hate Patrick Mahomes so bad that they've painted this narrative that basically he's in with the Taylor Swift crowd. He's in with with the Travis Kelce movement outside of the game of football. He's in every commercial. He's just kind of thrown in your face constantly, and they want you to hate him for it. And gets all the calls. He's smart enough to bait penalties during the game. It's just all these little things that go, man, I can't stand Patrick Mahomes, when a couple years ago we couldn't believe his success. All we could do was rave about no one can touch Patrick Mahomes. He is the best quarterback in the NFL. He's better than Josh Allen. He's better than Joe Burrow. He's better than Aaron Rodgers ever was. He's better than Brady. Like, he's going to be better than Brady. Like, hypotheticals are getting thrown out left and right. You would have thought it was the damn 4th of July, and every firework that popped out was some future analytic in 2032 of Patrick Mahomes just throwing 1 billion touchdowns in a season. And it was crazy. The glazing was crazy, and rightfully so. And I think Mahomes is still that person. So the point of the matter, the fact of the matter is, when you go into the Super Bowl 59 and you start talking about penalties not being called one way or the other, obviously in a Super Bowl you want penalties to be equal. You want them to kind of let the boys play. You don't want that. You don't want that dad in the stands that you could hear at every high school game going, "You're taking it from these kids. You're taking it from these kids. Call it fair. That's old." You don't want that. But I think every single call that was in favor of the Chiefs that was controversial, that may or may not have caused them to win a football game in their 10-plus one-possession game wins in the 2024 regular season, I think all of that was paid in full in the Super Bowl. And I don't understand why that is. I have a theory, but when I'm watching that game, I'm like, man, the 20 games of this, like, oh, you almost had us, but we had this penalty called. And, if like half of them are called, they're not even the first seed in the AFC. And you're like, you can't just ignore that. And I get it. There's calls missed everywhere. There's calls that are overly officiated in other games. But you couldn't ignore what the Chiefs were getting so fortunate on during the regular season and how it could have impacted their record, let alone their playoff seeding, and whether or not they would appear in a Super Bowl for the third time straight. So when they got there and, Mahomes was getting crushed, absolutely crushed, I thought to myself, almost like ball don't lie, but at like the grand stage where it really doesn't matter, they got there, all the other opponents are finished off. But it kind of felt like a ball don't lie moment where you're like, shit, all of the calls that were overly officiated or they were missed or the luck and the fortune that they had was all paid back in full for the Philadelphia Eagles in this Super Bowl. And I can't stress it enough how much Mahomes was just getting butchered in the pocket. So that's kind of like my opening statement for Super Bowl 59, because I know that's probably one of the main topics that people have been discussing in the media. People have been probably discussing in their office. The boys talk on the weekends like, oh man, wearing your favorite player's jersey. So I wanted to address that portion first. But as we get into the GOAT debate, right? The greatest of all time, Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes. It's kind of a long story short. Before I get into the brass and tacks, my overall opinion on it, I'm talking about it because it's a popular topic in the media right now. But I mean, the whole argument is a hypothetical, a lot like I mentioned in the previous podcast episode. But I mean, you're talking about a cat like Patrick Mahomes that's not even 30 years old yet, and you're placing him in this GOAT debate with Tom Brady, who played until he was like 42, and you're asking whether or not Patrick Mahomes is close enough to be the new GOAT of the NFL. And you're looking at his Super Bowl record, which if you have a stat for a Super Bowl record, you're one of the greats, if not the. Mahomes is 3-2 in the Super Bowl, which is crazy. Like, again, crazy stat to have. You've been 5 times before you're 30. Obviously, Tom Brady was 7-3 in his Super Bowl appearances, and he took some years where he didn't make it and whatnot, and other quarterbacks went on and won it. He had some that were taken away from him by none other than the Eagles. But when you look at this, I think the difference maker throughout, there's a similarity here. I'm kind of piecing it all together, but my big takeaway with Mahomes is that off the top of my head, I don't ever remember Tom Brady getting just railed in the Super Bowl. The last time Patrick Mahomes' first Super Bowl loss, he lost 9-31 to Tom Brady, which is another kind of a cemented argument where it's like, you can't call Mahomes the GOAT if he can't beat the GOAT. It's kind of like in golf. People are like, Scotty Scheffler has the 7th highest, stroke average per tournament in 1 year in golf history. The person that holds the other 6 in the top 6 are all held by Tiger Woods. You're like, oh God. Like, dude, no one's catching Tiger Woods. Then you use this same argument, kind of just, let's paint a picture here. Patrick Mahomes lost to Tom Brady in the Super Bowl 9-31. That's like saying LeBron James lost to Michael Jordan 140-86 in Game 4 of the finals and swept him. It's like, you can't call LeBron the GOAT. It's kind of like little boy. You do that celly where you hit that hiya and say, little boy, I'm the GOAT. I'm your daddy. And you can't ever surmount that, because then, next thing you know, Dak Prescott and the Cowboys buried Tom Brady the following year and sent him off to Cancun into forever retirement to a $30 billion contract with Fox Sports, where he's now talking, we're talking about a commentator learning how to commentate. He's enjoying life. I mean, so he got to bury Mahomes in a Super Bowl on the biggest stage, GOAT versus GOAT, right? Bury him and walk off into the sunset. So that's interesting. When you want to talk about the GOAT argument, you got to keep those two things in mind. Brady beat Mahomes in the Super Bowl, and Brady was never blown out twice in a Super Bowl. Now, here's the counter argument to that. Everyone on planet Earth, it seems, not everyone, but most people on this earth When they see a team win or lose, for some reason, in their minds, there is no other credential or emphasis of the game, no factor that plays in outside of just the quarterback. It is only the quarterback who won. It is only the quarterback that caused the loss. It is only because of this quarterback or that one that the team lost. And I get it. The quarterback is under the most pressure. He gets the ball the most. I was a quarterback. I get it. It all falls into your hands. You feel like you need to go to church when you lose a game and just ask for forgiveness because you failed all your teammates. I understand. But that's not what it is. The coaches, the GMs, the players, they will tell you straight to your face at the Roman circus that is a team game. This isn't baseball, where I classify it as an individual team sport. You can't control when your time at the plate's going to be. You can't control what inning you're going to get to make up for your strikeout with a defensive play. But you're always supposed to be on your toes and be where you're supposed to be. You're turning two, you got to be there. If you got a batter that hits opposite field, you got to adjust at second or shortstop or bunt protection. All those things. Individual team sport. Know your role, communicate a little bit, and perform on your own. And that contributes to the team, an individual team sport. Football is completely different. It takes all 11 on both sides of the ball to complete a freaking play. One play. All right, power right. We're going to pull block kick, move to the second level, double to the linebacker. Fullback's got to kick out the tight end. Tight end, we're going to cut back to the left side and kick out the end so he doesn't get there. Receivers, they got to block 15 yards downfield. We got to get a cadence right here. We got to check the blitz before, blah, blah, blah. Turn around. Not even just turn around and hand on the ball. We got to do a freaking reverse out. Make sure you carry out the play fake. And then the running back hits the gap, reads the right hole, goes hash to sideline, touchdown. Well, what happened there? All 11 guys did their portion and worked together to score or to get 4 yards or to get -3 it's all about execution. But for some reason, the Joe Schmoes think that because a team wins or loses, it's all on the quarterback. It has to be. That's the argument with everyone. So when I apply this to the Patrick Mahomes thing and the Brady thing, it's like when Tom Brady was playing, he didn't get blown out because he had a top 7 defense like all of his career. This defense was stellar. Mahomes, he's had Spagnuolo. Steve Spagnuolo. He's a pretty damn good defense coordinator. They got a pretty damn good crew. They've had some all-pros. Chris Jones is kind of like the centralized piece in that defense. But they've allowed 2 blowouts in a Super Bowl. But what factors played into those blowouts? Turnovers. Senseless turnovers. And turnovers, as I've always been told, turnovers are a 14-point swing. And some teams just can't overcome that. And so what I'm getting at with the whole you can't blame the quarterback and you can't just blame the quarterback outright and say it's all because of him. And that kind of transitions me into like the Hurts talk. I'm trying to see if I'm forgetting anything. Like, I apologize, but I feel like I was going somewhere else with that. But I'm just trying to look. I was like, okay, we're about to get into the Jalen Hurts topic, but I'm pretty sure I wasn't done with Mahomes. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of all I was trying to say with, I wanted to lead into legacies, but okay. Yeah, everything's covered on the Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes debate. Did you guys get that? Is that clear to you guys out there in the audience? Chat, let me know. You can put donos in the chat, hashtag Philippians413. But when the point I'm trying to make with this, with the Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, hopefully that makes sense. Like with the GOAT debate, you had to put all these factors into play. You have to put Mahomes lost to Brady in the Super Bowl. You have to put Mahomes getting blown out twice in the Super Bowl. That's where I was going with it. There we go, guys. We're working back to it. It has been a long week. We're working back to it. Mahomes getting blown out twice in the Super Bowl plays into different factors of not just the quarterback. There are plenty of other things that can happen within a game that don't involve the quarterback's participation. And that's where I was confused with the Jalen Hurts thing earlier. It's like on Jalen Hurts' side of the football, we're crowning him the king of the NFC, the king of the NFL, one of the greats, right? When his defense caused 2 interceptions from Mahomes, they forced a fumble, and they forced a turnover on downs, and you won the game. And we're like, it was all Hurts. Hurts is the Super Bowl MVP. You can't deny it. You can't question it. And on Mahomes' side, like I said, it takes all 11. There's multiple clips out there of Travis Kelce just standing still out in the middle of the field. No effort was given on certain crucial plays and moments. Penalties, holding, offsides, all that kind of stuff. It all factors in. But the easiest thing for the media to take a hold of is a narrative like that and just say, is Mahomes the GOAT? Discuss. Like I've mentioned before in the previous episodes. Is Mahomes the GOAT? Talk about it for 15 minutes and don't let the white guy talk, Dan Orlovsky. And by the way, Dan Orlovsky's leaving ESPN soon. Wonder why. There's a clip out there where, for 4 minutes, his constituents are talking and he's just trying to speak and he can't. And then they're like, oh, Dio's trying to say something. What were you going to say? Oh, I forgot. It's been 5 minutes. So let's put this in clear terms and we'll move into Jalen Hurts and get back to being organized. The Tom Brady debate. Mahomes has lost twice in Super Bowl. Both were blowouts. Lost to Tom Brady. That kind of like is a cemented little boy statement from Tom Brady. Mahomes isn't 30 yet, so there's a lot more to go. But when you put it in terms of a different sport, like LeBron playing Jordan in the finals and loses game 4 by like $1 billion, and you're like, well, how could he ever recover from that? I don't know if it's possible. But he was the only quarterback. There was a franchise that three-peated, but there wasn't ever a quarterback that won 3 straight. So that's interesting when you're talking about the GOAT debate. And you look at the future outlook, how does a guy like Patrick Mahomes bounce back from this? And what does it mean for his career? There's nothing to worry about. Like I said, Travis Kelce's contemplating retirement. There's a lot of different ways you can go with that. It's a good tight end drive. You can get that guy from Penn State, maybe trade up. There's the TCU tight end whose brother tragically died in the New Orleans attacks. Like, that dude's going to be a baller. His story alone should influence you to draft this guy. But Mahomes, as a person, as a professional, talent-wise, we saw what he could do with practically nothing this year, with basically a bunch of scraps and leftovers and veterans who really couldn't move. And yeah, his stats didn't line up on the stat sheet like you want them to. They weren't MVP numbers, but he got them to 15-2 with the help of his team. And they have a system and a formula for succeeding that shouldn't be ignored. So when you talk about where he's going to go from here, it's up. A lot of quarterbacks don't start playing their best football until they're about 27, 28, 29, closer to 30, especially if they're, the pocket passers. A lot of the dual threat runner quarterbacks, those guys start pretty early and they end quicker. So for Mahomes to be this talented at his age and be this acclimated so early in his career before he's 30 years old, kind of like that veteran mark, it's impressive. And he's going to be in the Super Bowl again. He's going to take pay cuts. He's going to do the things necessary to bring the guys talented enough to win in. Andy Reid's going to stay. There's no reason for Andy Reid to leave. So I think it's going to be a fun future for the NFL as long as they stay away from, making any more changes to hitting people in the sport of hitting people. But for Mahomes is concerned, there's nothing to be worried about. This is something you bounce back, work harder in the offseason, and he knows that. Me and him are going to have a conversation over the phone here in a couple minutes. Once the show is over, just kind of talk things through it. I'm kind of his escape from reality. So it's going to be interesting to see what he says there. And, I know he's got his wife and his gay brother and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see. Now, moving into the transition thing. This is kind of like the good, the bad, the ugly with Jalen Hurts. I know I have friends out there that, and I've said this to my best friend, that basically forbid me from talking about Jalen Hurts because they think I hate him. And I wouldn't classify it as hate. And I don't think I hate Jalen Hurts. I really think that when he makes a good throw, I'm going to say good throw. And I don't think him as a player, my official opinion on him is I think he's below average at throwing the ball. You can't ask him to throw it 30 to 40 times a game. Yes, he can make some throws. He's an NFL quarterback. That deep throw in slow motion in the Super Bowl, great. I said great throw. I know he's capable of throwing a deep ball. I get it. Just because somebody can throw a deep ball up to a receiver doesn't mean that they're just the most elite quarterback on planet Earth. I'm not going to disrespect that. But if you're asking him to be superhero, to be a superhero, to be Superman, and throw it 30, 40 times 75% of the year, I don't think he's your guy. Because when you look at his passing stats this year, and I'm not like a purely stat guy, you throw for less than 3,000 yards, less than 20 passing touchdowns. You have minimal turnovers, which is great. I've spoken about this all before. I think he runs really well and tough when he needs to. I think his pocket presence is subpar. He does a lot of this bounce around, can't find anybody open, roll out to the right, throw it away. He doesn't make mistakes, which is a good tangible to have. I think he runs an RPO offense to perfection. I think it's very similar to a Brock Purdy over there in San Francisco, to where you can't doubt whether something Brock Purdy is good or bad because he's always been in this system. That's a lot like Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts makes the clutch throws when he has a clutch factor to him. So when you're talking about whether I hate the quarterback or not, it's not the quarterback that I hate. It's the fortune that I think he gets, which is a non-controllable for Jalen Hurts. But if you want to be real and you want to ask me, is Jalen Hurts your Super Bowl MVP? Hell nah. It should go to the defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio. I mean, you caused 4 turnovers to the Kansas City Chiefs, where almost every other team in the NFL wasn't able to do that. You put up 40 points on the Chiefs. I can't remember the last time a team put up 40 on the Chiefs and blew them out of the water. You know, it just kind of doesn't happen. But when you get that many turnovers on defense, it's pretty easy to keep momentum, to game manage, to use your running back who rushed for over 2,000 yards and had the 4th most scrimmage yards in NFL history to cement the game. And I get it. He didn't have Saquon Barkley didn't have a glorious day rushing on the ground. I understand that. He only had 23 carries for 58, 60 yards, something like that. I get it. But Jalen Hurts is a winner. That needs to be stated. He does what he needs to do to win the game. And a lot of times that includes game management. And if you've listened to my show before, I have 0 issues with game management. But I'm watching him. It's like, I've talked about his playoff path before. I've talked about, his fortune in his matchups, his opponent quarterbacks, his opponents in general being within the same division as you. And you got guys like Dak Prescott commenting, we're close. I mean, if you look at the guys in the championship this year, we play those guys twice a year, and we match up pretty well with them when we play them. So you talk about if we're close or not. Yeah, we're close. And I understand his point of emphasis there. He's a quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. He can't possibly say anything negative at any given moment, right? Or else Jerry Jones will strip your contract away and trade you to the Jets. And yes, that's a threat. But with a guy like Jalen Hurts, it's just interesting for me to see how everyone has just blown him up to be like the Superman, the superhero, when really all he did was react to the turnovers caused by the defense. And yes, he did his job. He won. The Eagles have arguably the best roster in the NFL. When you have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley, a top 5 offensive line, Sirianni, who needs to get a lot more respect on his name, a defense with a white boy cornerback who was the highest grade PFF cornerback in the league this year. I think it was an 86.3. Along with Reed Blankenship, all the Georgia cats that you drafted, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Zach Bond, all these guys, a GM that's insanely aggressive, that says, yeah, I know we paid our players, but we can still be aggressive in free agency and in the draft, and we'll pay the price later, but at least we'll get a Lombardi trophy. All those factors play into Jalen Hurts' success. Now, this isn't a criticism. This is the reality of football. Like I mentioned, a team game earlier. It takes 11 on defense, 11 on special teams, and 11 on offense to win a freaking game. It takes the coaching staff, it takes GM, it takes all of it. And so when your defense causes 4 turnovers, 2 interceptions from Mahomes, 1 fumble loss, and 1 turnover on downs, that's momentum. A lot of times when that stuff happens, you get good field position. You can run you never are out of scheme on defense. You're always staying within the scheme, staying within the playbook. That's Kellen Moore's dream world. Back in the day, he was ridiculed for him and Mike McCarthy were ridiculed for not being good game managers because they would run up the score all day, and then the defense would be gassed because their tempo on offense was go, go, go. And so once late in the third quarter hit and the nightmares continued for Kansas City, I was like, shit, this is Kellen Moore's dream world. Just run the score up. Why not put 50 on Patrick Mahomes? Screw it. It's every time I look up, it's 3rd and 18 from the Chiefs, which is another thing. I mean, that plays into punts, which is another beneficiary to Jalen Hurts' offense. Give the MVP to Vic Fangio, for crying out loud. Give it to Zach Bond. And I get it. Any MVP award is going to go to the quarterback, but I'm so tired of having to listen to people watch a football game and not watch it and then tell me that Jalen Hurts is the most incredible thing they've ever seen in their lives. And I want to give my props and praises to Jalen Hurts. I don't dislike the guy at all. And here's why. Let me go into Jalen Hurts. This dude went into Alabama with the dread still intact, right? This is back when dread Jalen Hurts was at Alabama. Benched for Tua Tagovailoa, where Tagovailoa came in and started ripping the defense to shreds. And then in the national championship, followed by kind of playing the bench role later on, comes back and wins a national championship, filling in for the injured, I think it was the injured Tua Tagovailoa, winning the national championship, then getting to respond to that adversity, both in the football game and after with the SEC media. Tim Tebow asking him questions, and he said, I never thought about transferring. I've always wanted to get my degree because to a lot of people, they don't understand how personal it is for me to get an education and from people from my background to get an education. And I'm going to be graduating on the 15th. And I'm just so thankful for this opportunity that God allowed me to have. And I can't wait. But I got to admit, it was really hard. My path was difficult. Don't let anybody tell you differently. But I embrace that. And then he goes to the Philadelphia Eagles, a pretty prestigious franchise in the NFL, not a bad place to land, 2nd-round draft pick. A lot of quarterbacks argue he would rather get you get less money, but you might land on a better team and a better situation to where you are built to succeed. And so he's been to the playoffs 4 years in a row, straight winner. Straight winner. No one can deny that. He wins football games. I use the same arguments when I protect players like Dak Prescott. And God forbid I think Dak is a good quarterback. God forbid it. But when I'm watching Jalen Hurts, I mean, you want to talk about all that adversity he faced in college, and then all the hate and the criticisms that he would get in the NFL. And then he goes not once to Super Bowl, but twice, and their team wins it for him, for players like him, for people like him and whatnot on the stage as they did. They played as hard as they did for the people around him in that locker room. That's what I'm happy for. And I'm jealous of. That's the jealousy right there. It's not hate for Jalen Hurts. It's jealousy. I wish I had a GM in Dallas that was that aggressive, that wouldn't trade players like Luka to the Lakers. I wish I had the Dallas Stars GM. I wish I had Chris Young, the Rangers GM. Get aggressive and then get out of the way. I don't, though. They have Howie Roseman. They're going to have to, Front Row Sports is reporting, they got to pay the bill. Fuck you. So what? I got to pay the bill. I'm holding a Lombardi trophy. So what? I paid my quarterback $55 million. I'm still going to go after these guys. I still have the cap space to get Myles Garrett this upcoming offseason. That's what I'm jealous of. It's a team game. It's a team sport. It takes a whole organization to win. And yes, there are superheroes in sports. You look at a guy like Josh Allen, that's a superhero. You look at a guy like Lamar, he can be a superhero. You look at a guy like Joe Burrow. He has a horrible defense. Horrible. It was joked about at the NFL awards. Dude has like 50 passing touchdowns and less than 10 picks in the year. That's Superman. I get it. Mahomes has that factor too. And not every other quarterback has that. They have to be a game manager, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's why it takes, all 53 of the roster to contribute to a win. That's all I'm saying. And God forbid I be a realist and watch the football game and say, here's what really happened. Here's what I really saw. Here's how the game of football really works. Didn't you play football? You did. Okay, what level? You played in high school. So you understand that you had a responsibility at outside linebacker to contain the gap. And when you didn't, they scored. You understand that, right? Okay. So when all of the 11 defensive players on one side of the ball causes 4 turnovers, do you think that helps out your offense any at all? Yes. Okay, it does. Wow. I didn't know that. Let's give the MVP to Jalen Hurts and let's call him the greatest that ever lived and walked. That portion I disagree with. I just disagree with it. And congrats to him. I'm happy for him. He's a great person. I've always told people I like Jalen Hurts as a person. I'd root for him anywhere but the Eagles. I get that. I'm a Cowboys fan, but there is no hate or malice towards him. It's just you got to look at the sport with some realism. Sometimes. I mean, all the time, please, would be great. And I would like some feedback, like if you guys listen to it and you reach out to me and say, I disagree or I agree, like, hey, hit me up. I'm happy to have the conversation with you. But a lot of people know they think I hate the guy. I don't. So that's kind of the good, bad, and the ugly there. The good, great person, great athlete, hard-ass worker, great commercial in the Super Bowl, by the way. He is a grinder. He has faced adversity. He has faith with God. All those tangibles. He shows up on the field every day with the same mentality to win. Very calm, very collective, very cool. That's the good. The bad is that we have to deal with this. Super Bowl MVP, Super Bowl winning quarterback, Jalen Hurts. What has your quarterback ever done? He's blah, blah, blah. And you're like, okay, that narrative, your guys are twisting the narrative. That's the bad. The ugly is people watch the games and they don't watch the games. They don't understand what actually happened in the game for all those things to happen. And they just remove that as a factor and say, quarterback, it's the people at the Roman circuits. It's like to wake up, the truth behind the lies. And it's not always a bad thing, but the quarterback does a lot. I get it. He does a lot. He doesn't do everything, though. It takes everyone. Unless you're Josh Allen. Okay. I want to move into this portion of the show is going to be interesting. I want to move into the halftime show. Now, of course, Kendrick Lamar was a halftime show performer. Didn't really perform a lot of the songs that I thought he was going to perform. The ones that I would say most of the world is most familiar with. He kind of played his not underground songs, but kind of the ones if you're a true fan of Kendrick Lamar, you're going to listen to those, but not like the worldwide, like Mad City and all that kind of stuff. Like that's interesting to me. But that kind of goes along with my argument. People were like, all right, I'm going to go on a tangent. People were like, if you don't know what Kendrick Lamar's talking about, then you are not a part of it. I'm like, part of what? Like, what are we talking about here? And it's like, well, in the Super Bowl performance, he had the American flag and he was standing in the middle of it and the American flag split. This shows diversity in the world and how America is the most split country in the world, and we don't agree on a lot of different things, and his race is discriminated against and whatnot, and the 40 and whatever it's called, it wasn't carried out as a promise to his people and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like what? Why is this a puzzle for me to figure out in a Super Bowl show? Like I get it. And then the other alternative side of the halftime show, it's like Samuel L. Jackson is Uncle Sam. I thought that was kind of funny. I think Samuel L. Jackson is hilarious. I'm not a big fan of Hollywood, as you could guess, but watching him out there, it's just every time I see him, it reminds me of like movies that he's played in where he's just a funny actor. And so him going out there, it's like, okay, he put on a pretty good performance as Uncle Sam, and like, oh yeah, he was using Uncle Sam straight to Donald Trump's face as Donald Trump was in the stands or whatever. It was kind of a message to him to say, fuck you. It's like, what? Like, was it really? How do you know that? Did he tell you that? And did Kendrick Lamar, did the 5'3" guy tell you that that's what they were doing? I mean, let's be serious now. And maybe he was. We'll never know. It's just like the song from Childish Gambino, "This Is America." And you're like, what does it mean? And there's like 4-hour videos on YouTube talking about a music video. It's like, I think he's trying to encapsulate the, this and that and this portion of America and how this and that's going on. And you're like, dog, it's a 3-minute song and it's kind of ass. Like, the song sucked. And you guys are making 4-hour videos. And that Kendrick Lamar fan spectrum where they're like, everything that Kendrick Lamar says in his lyrics have meaning. Everything is poetic. Everything revolves around justice. And you're like, I'm like, okay. Well, I didn't come for the Declaration of Independence. I came for a halftime show, a Super Bowl performance, similar to like Usher or, Justin Timberlake or, hell, let's bring country back to the Super Bowl. Like, let's give a performance. Let's not give an affirmation or a hearing or a congressional meeting. Like, I'm not here to be educated on, it's the same stance that Bill Burr always has. Like, can I just watch a freaking football game and not have to worry about puzzling all this stuff together, right? And so there's this like pre-show theory, right, where it's like, oh, Kendrick Lamar disrespected the NFL and all these different corporations by playing Not Like Us when they said they would sue him if he played Not Like Us in front of the entire country. It's like, yeah, all right, yeah. For the Super Bowl, the performer, Kendrick Lamar, didn't provide the NFL a set list. Like, ask yourself that question. Yeah, Kendrick Lamar just went in there and said, yeah, you know what, here's the set list, but there's a secret song here I'm just not going to tell you guys about. But somehow the entire stadium or the entire set that I'm on, the people that are dancing with me, the choreographers and whatnot, know exactly what's going on, and no one else did. I just told about 30,000. I just told about 150 people on staff, and nobody said a word. You never knew Not Like Us was coming, and it's like, it's like thank people. Yes, there was a set list. They knew it was playing. This is why I have the argument that the halftime show was completely manufactured. It was 100% manufactured. It was built like the Roman circus for you guys to watch it and go and talk about it like you are talking about it now. And to say that it was a message to America. To say, oh, Kendrick Lamar's whole entire halftime show was focused on the Drake beef. And the entire stadium said minor at the end. Oh my God, the balls on Kendrick Lamar. Oh my God, and he got Serena Williams to crip walk on stage. And it's like... Bro, by the way, have y'all seen Serena Williams' white husband? And I'm all for any race dating any race. I don't really give a shit. But the guy, it's a bad look. The guy himself, he's got a body like a baked potato. It was a bad look. But she's crip walking on stage because Drake is her ex, apparently. And it's like, bro, you've been married for as long as you had to this white guy, and you're dancing around a lot like Stephen A. Smith said. Like, I agree with him. And you're worried about stunting on your ex on a Super Bowl platform in front of the entire world. Shit, go back to him. Go back to him. If you care that much about what Drake thinks about you, why don't you go back to Drake's ass? And so that's interesting to me. And all those pieces together, like it was so funny to me. Because I'm on like I guess the algorithm in Twitter that has people talking about it, and they're my favorite thing that they've said, and I said it earlier, was if you don't know what he's talking about, then you're not a part of it. And it's like, okay, so obviously you're probably referring to there's he's trying to protect minorities in this country, right? Okay, so very small portion of the United States, got it. Then you got to go to the people that actually listen to Kendrick Lamar and understand what he's talking about. It's like, okay, that's an even smaller portion. Then you got to talk about the people that know about the Drake and the Kendrick Lamar beef. That's an even smaller portion. So you're talking about the people that are not a part of it because they don't understand it. You're talking about maybe 3% of the population of the United States. That's who he was choreographing for and demonstrating for and performing for at the Super Bowl halftime show. That was his plan. I got the biggest environment known to man. We're in New Orleans at the Superdome, and I get to play in the Super Bowl. I'm going to make it all about Drake. I'm going to play Not Like Us, and I'm going to have Serena Williams crip walking because her ex Drake is getting clowned. I guarantee you there'll be a lawsuit coming from Drake. I don't give a shit if there is one or not. But when you look at the Super Bowl halftime show, that's what I thought. I think it was the first one in a long time where I watched it and said, what the hell is this? I don't understand it. So I guess I'm not a part of it. 2, why the hell is Serena Williams dancing by herself underneath a streetlight pole? And then 3, I don't understand why it has to be some crazy puzzle for me to figure out what the meaning of his halftime show is, when I really just wanted to listen to some damn good music and say, oh yeah, you just played Mad City. Love this shit. Great song. The best part of the Super Bowl halftime show was when SZA came out and played All the Stars. I think that is a phenomenal song. She's got great vocals. Kendrick Lamar complements the song really well. When Black Panther came out, that album was legit. That was a legit album. And I think they let Ryan Coogler, the director of the show Black Panther, let Kendrick Lamar kind of run that album. He did a great job on it. So if you think I'm a hater of Kendrick Lamar, no, I'm just a hater of bringing politics and diversity issues and all that kind of stuff into an entertainment setting. It's like, yeah, I'm going to go to a concert and I'm going to pay $400, and the whole time he's just up there talking about political stuff, and you're like, I don't understand it. This is the revolution. Let's go back to the Michael Jackson days where he just comes out from the stage and presents himself and just stands still and looks one direction, and chicks start passing out from his aura. And you're like that's what I want to watch. That clip's funny though. You should look at literally Michael Jackson walks out, just stands there, chick passes out. You're like, from his aura, straight glowing. So, in end all be all, his Super Bowl halftime show, I don't get it. I don't care to get it. If he bashed Trump, if he bashed America, if he did that, the other, where have we not seen that before? I get it. There was a set list. It was manufactured. There is no, conspiracy theory behind Kendrick Lamar playing Not Like Us and nobody knowing about it, and him just having the audacity to have all those, half a dozen performers in sync with him talking about Not Like Us before he even performed it. It's like, oh yeah, oh, this was so clever by Kendrick Lamar. It's like, bro, it's the NFL. All of that is monitored and controlled and manufactured. You don't think they would let that slip? It just, common sense, people think. If you want to talk politics, we can talk about the U.S. aid and Doge and how much crap we're spending our taxpayer dollars on. That's politics. That's realism. Let's just reform the whole government. Let's just do that. So, you can dress people up in red, white, and blue all day. It doesn't really matter to me. It's a Super Bowl halftime show, not a congressional hearing. But congrats to Kendrick Lamar, the person, for being able to perform the Super Bowl. I know it's a big honor. So congrats to him. He can do with the platform whatever he sees pleases, however he pleases, just like I am. So, all jokes aside. Honestly, that's pretty much it for today's episode. I just wanted to talk just explicitly the Super Bowl. As we get closer to the offseason and the NFL draft and whatnot, we're going to be covering, draft strategies for certain teams, maybe the top 10 picks, where we think people are going to land. There might be some movement in the draft that we're going to talk about. We might go over some mock drafts and see what makes sense for certain teams. Most likely going to be focused on the Dallas Cowboys specifically. And as we get closer to there, we'll probably do a big break. I will probably do a big 2-3 week break. Maybe might do some short episodes if something big comes along, 30-minute things, but there won't be like a scheduled, like every Tuesday sort of thing. Like lately it's been whenever it's relevant to do it. It'll be like that, kind of intermediate episodes as season 3 is developed for the podcast. So there'll be more episodes out there and more content and whatnot. And then I'll be able to orchestrate a season 3 for you guys with new incentives and new factors to make it more entertaining for everybody and whatnot. And we'll get after it in 2025. So should be a fun year. And as we get, and hopefully more people will contribute to the show and enjoy it and get involved and whatnot. So I'll be looking forward to that. Okay. I will see y'all when y'all see. Y'all will hear from me when an episode is going to come out. And you'll also see some promotional stuff for season 3. So, appreciate you guys for season 2. Once again, hope y'all enjoyed it. Hope y'all enjoyed Stats and Scars and Challenge the Script. And we will see y'all soon. Be sure to follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and X at the tag at Shatter the Script. Or you can follow us and subscribe, like, follow to our podcast platforms such as Apple Podcasts. We have audio there, and Spotify and YouTube, both supported by video with the tags at Shatter the Script on all 3 of those. So we see y'all when I see y'all, and y'all have a good rest of y'all's week.